What's up, friends? Welcome back to Whoa, That's Good Wednesday. I hope you're having a great week. Well, as always, it's about to get better, and I'm so excited that today I get to interview Tay Lautner, y'all. She is so incredible. She has so many good things going. Just if you don't know some of the things that she has going on, she has a blog called Lemons by Tay. She also runs a nonprofit, the Lemons Foundation. She's a registered nurse. She is a mental health advocate. She also has a YouTube channel with vlogs and all kinds of fun things. And she's also just an awesome human that I just got to meet. So I'm super excited to have her on the podcast, and I know you guys are going to love her. So welcome to the podcast, Tay.
Woo! Thank you for having me. Yes. I'm so excited.
Also, one thing that I've already noticed about you that I absolutely love is you are a woo girl, and I'm a woo girl.
I so am.
I'm always the one that's like, woo! And so you've done it like twice, and I'm like, yes!
Oh my gosh. It's woo and yeehaw. Those are like my two. I don't know.
That's a good one. I have not entered the yeehaw zone yet, but I'm definitely a woo girl. That's awesome.
Oh my gosh.
It's so good.
I love that.
Well, I gotta kickstart the podcast the way that I always do. And this is an intimidating question, but what is the best piece of advice that you've ever been given?
It's a good question.
It's a big one.
I think probably my dad is like huge on perspective. He's like said that to me for years. And like how we view relationships, how like people view things just in relationships, in life, in the world, just to like have perspective of other people's views and their feelings and whatnot. So I think I can literally just hear him saying perspective in my mind when I say it.
Gosh, that's so good. And I love that the good advice is a word that you can hold on to, because sometimes, you have these good advices, but you can't even recall them, because it's like so long or so good, or you're like, there's a quote I like, but I'm not sure how you say it. But perspective's such a good one, because that can just pop in your head at any time and be like, just perspective. We actually, in our office, we kind of do this, and it's pretty funny, where if someone will say something that's even like remotely negative about someone else, they'll be like, oh, she didn't get her stuff together, blah, blah, blah. Then we're like, well, she probably, and we'll paint this very dramatic perspective of probably all the things going on in her life. And then at the end, we'll all joke, be like, oh, that's it. That makes sense. That's so good. But it is crazy how perspective can just shift everything. So I love that so much. One thing that's kind of fun is we've never met, but we have a lot of mutual friends. So Aiden is a mutual friend of ours, and he was actually on the podcast this year. So that's fun. And didn't he sing at you guys' wedding?
He did. Yeah, he sang our first dance song, and he actually sang a cover of Heaven's Knife.
Oh, cool.
That was like, I always knew I wanted to walk down the aisle to that song.
That's cool.
My husband actually had Aiden like record a cover of it, and he had it playing when he proposed to me.
Oh, wow.
So that was there, and then we used the same like track for me to like walk down the aisle. So there was a lot of Aiden at our wedding.
Sweet. That's awesome. Go Aiden. Well, actually, there's a lot of Aiden in our wedding too, because I walked down the aisle to Touch of Heaven that he wrote. And so when we met Aiden, we were like, I actually walked down the aisle to your song. And so it's funny because we weren't even friends before. We just chose that song. And so that's awesome. Well, he's super talented. And then we also have the Kennedys are going to be on the podcast in just a few weeks. So
oh my gosh, how fun.
Yes, a lot of good people in your circle, and thankful to know them. But tell me about your wedding, because what a fun season of life, and your pictures were just absolutely gorgeous.
Thank you. Yeah, not that I was shocked how they turned out, because our photographer Nicole is just insane. She crushed it, but I was like, holy crap, like that. These turned out insane. But it was everything I could have hoped and dreamed for and more. But awesome. Originally, Taylor and I just wanted to elope, because we just love each other. Like we're just like intimate. We just like the two of us. Like that was when we got engaged. We were like, maybe we'll do that. And I'm an only child, and he only has one sister, and both their parents were like, no, you're not doing that. So we were like, okay, fair enough. So we ended up throwing this like 4-day wedding, which is literally a 180 of an elopement.
That's awesome.
But we just had like 4 nights. We even did like a night after our wedding just to like celebrate with everyone.
That's cool.
Yeah, we had like 90 of just our closest friends and
That's
family.
cool.
Did it in wine country. We love wine, and it's a very special place to us. We drive up there and go wine tasting all the time. So
That's cool.
it's like our little spot, but
I love that.
it was a dream.
I love the 4-day wedding. I think it's like, I mean, this is the one time in your life to celebrate the love of your life, and you also find out, I feel like the more you plan a wedding, that the wedding is, of course, for y'all, but it's also for everybody around y'all that are going to do life with you. And then your marriage is the two of you, obviously. But then you get to know, man, all those people that were just at my wedding are for us in our marriage. And knowing that you have like a community around you in marriage is such a beautiful thing. And so I think it's so cool y'all have 4 days to like soak in and celebrate just the beauty of that. The word celebrate, I think there's like one of the definitions of celebrate where it's like to pause and give honor and praise where honor and praise is due. And I think just that pausing, that stopping in life to celebrate the things that matter are so important. And so good for y'all for taking a 4-day pause. I think that's awesome. That's so fun.
It was great because it didn't go by fast. Like, so many people were like, you're going to blink, it's going to be over. And it was like really stressing me out because I'd like obviously throwing weddings a lot. So I was like, I want to be present. I want to be present. And like by Saturday night, which was our last night, I was like, okay, this is definitely like gone on. Like, I think I need a nap now. Like it definitely, but it didn't go by quick. So I was really happy with how we did it.
That's awesome. We did so the day before we did bridal luncheon, and then we did the rehearsal dinner, and then we did a worship night with all of our like close friends and family. And it was
fun.
My favorite thing because you're right. It wasn't like rushed. It was just, we were so in the moment. And then the wedding day, we did a first look, so it was really fun because then we had we got to hang out the whole day. But the ceremony went by like that to me. I got so nervous, and I mean, I guess I am kind of a nervous person. Like, I get nervous for things before I do things. But my dad looked over at me. He goes, "I've never seen you so nervous." I was like shaking, and it wasn't I was questioning anything. It was just we had so many people at our wedding. Like, hindsight, a 90-person wedding sounds amazing because I probably wouldn't have been as nervous. But it's a big old Louisiana wedding. We literally had 700 people. It was everybody we've ever known and loved, and it was just the idea of walking in front of all those people who I love, who are about to stare at me. I was shaking. And so I think with my nerves, the ceremony was like that. And I remember right after the ceremony, I looked at Christian, I was like, oh no, I think I can't remember what just happened. I think I just blanked out. So thank God for videos.
Oh my gosh.
Yes. Thank God for that. But it was so fun. Also, I heard that Taylor's sister is the one that kind of set y'all up, which I love that because a sister is they either love you or they are no, don't date this person. So that's kind of cool that she chose you. So how did y'all get to know each other?
Yeah, we actually, ironically, when Taylor's family moved out here years ago when he was 12, his family moved to the same town that I'm from. Which was outside of LA, kind of randomly happened. But his sister and I are a year apart. We went to opposing high schools. We always knew the other, but not I would say hi to her if I saw her out somewhere, but I didn't really know her. And then randomly, one of my closest friends ended up going to the same college in Nashville that she went to. They became friends. And I went out there for my friend's birthday, met her at church, and then came home, and then 4 months later, she came home and I met her a second time at a girls' night that my friend was throwing. And then after that, she apparently called Taylor and was like, you have to throw a game night. I have a girl I'm bringing over. You need to meet her. And so that was just kind of how
I love that so
happened.
Much. That's so sweet. I love this time of year and all the time that I get to spend with my family. Y'all, I love a good story. And this time of the year is one of my favorites to snuggle up and listen to titles that I've been saving. That's why I love Audible. Whether you're wanting a heartwarming Christmas story or a great nonfiction read, they have you covered. No matter where I am, my imagination can run wild and stories can help me dream or encourage my sisters and friends around the world. One of my favorite listens is actually Lisa Turker. She just writes so much great stuff. One of the things she's recently recently written is Good Boundaries and Goodbyes, which makes you feel like you're really just having coffee with a good mentor, which don't we all kind of need in life? And Audible makes it so easy to have that. You can listen anytime, anywhere, and you can find the best of what you love or discover something new. And you can even try it for free for 30 days. Audible is the home of storytelling with all your audio entertainment in just one app. As an Audible member, you get to choose the title a month to keep from their entire catalog. That even includes the latest bestsellers and new releases. As a member, you also get full access to a growing selection of included audiobooks, Audible originals, and podcasts, which I have a feeling you might like because you can even listen to the Whoa, That's Good podcast on Audible. All your favorite content in one app, and like I mentioned, you can even listen to Lisa Turker's new titles and all your other favorite authors' new titles as well. Let Audible help you discover new ways to laugh, be inspired, or be entertained. New members can try Audible for free for 30 days. Just visit audible.com/Sadie or text Sadie to 500-500. That's Audible, AUDIBLE.com/Sadie or text Sadie to 500-500 to try Audible for 30 days for free. Audible.com/Sadie. You gotta love, see, my story is opposite, where my sister knew Christian before I did. They were friends for like 2 years. I never met Christian, and Christian lived like at the beach where we vacationed. So Bella had been there, met him, I hadn't. 2 years later, I go down to the beach and meet Christian kind of on a whim. Obviously, it's not a whim when you think about God's intentionality, but a whim in the grand, it just on the surface level. And I remember as soon as I saw him, I was like, he is so cute. Oh my God. And I knew though, I was like, Bella is not going to like this, because Bella was very much like, these are my friends, these are your friends. And now me and Bella are best friends, but you know, she's my little sister. And so I like call her, I'm like, hey, like I met Christian tonight and he's DM'd me and I just want to let you know. And she was like, no, you cannot date him. He is my friend. So my sister was like, you cannot date him. And it's so funny now. Bella is like, her and her husband are two of our best friends. And she is like, honey loves her, our daughter. And Bella's like, you know, I really missed it with this one. I really thought this should not have happened, but this is the best thing. So sometimes your sister nails it and sometimes they miss it by that much. So it was pretty funny.
I love that. That's an awesome story.
Yeah, it is pretty funny now looking back. Well, it's so fun. Like, you're in such a fun season of life, and early marriage is just so awesome, and it just continues to get better. I was just telling my friends that because they were saying they're kind of scared to have kids because their relationship is just so sweet, and what if it changes? And I said, you know, it does change, but it only gets better. And I remember when I married Christian, I was like, there's no way I can love you more, you know, because you're just so in love. And then you do. And it's just such a beautiful thing. And I think that's why, like, thinking about the fact that God is love, that just shows that there's just infinite ways to grow in love. And so I'm so excited for y'all. That's awesome.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Yeah, we're excited.
That's great. Well, I want to talk to you about Lemons by Tay, because I think you're doing so many cool things, and it's really awesome. Just prepping for this podcast, reading so many of your blogs, and watching so many of your videos. You're just a huge inspiration. And so tell me how that started and why you were inspired to start that.
Yeah, so it's kind of like, I definitely feel like it was just my life, like coming to one moment. But I've always been big into mental health. Before I struggled with it on my own. I lost a good friend. He had bipolar. He took his life like 5 years ago. A lot of my family members have struggled with addiction, and I've always just kind of been surrounded by it, but never really experienced on my own. And then in the winter of 2019, I graduated nursing school, and then I started working in surgery, like outpatient, and then that got shut down because of COVID in 2020. And then I was at home and I was like, okay, I want to work. I just finished school. Like, I have all this brain power that I just did. I want to put it to use. So I was like, I'm only going to apply to this one hospital. If I get in, I'll work there. If not, then I'll just wait this COVID thing out. I ended up getting in, which was Taylor's worst nightmare because he did not want me to go. I was working night shift.
Yeah.
Obviously he supported me because that's like what I wanted to do. And he was so great to me through that. But winter of 2020, the COVID had kind of like died down in the hospital, and then in like the winter it like shot up during flu season of that year. And the first night I started on my own, we went out of ratio. So normally I would be watching 4 patients, but instead I had 5. And our charge nurse, who is like the person that runs the unit essentially, and who new grads like rely on to be like, hey, can you help me put this in or do this or whatever? She was off in the monitor room because we were on the tele floor, which is basically a cardiac floor. All the patients are on heart monitors. They all need that extra monitoring. And our monitor tech, who sits in the room and looks at all the heart rhythms and will call a code blue if someone's like tanking, they were sick. So our charge nurse had to go in there to watch the monitors. So here I am, like 23, 22 years old, taking care of 5 patients the first night on my own. Like 4 would have been plenty. And I remember just like crying that first night, because when you go into one room, you got to put the gown on, you have your one mask on, you have to put another mask over, you have to put your goggles on, the shield on, booties on, double glove, and then you go in, and then you go out, and then you take it all off, and then you re-put it all back on to go into the next room. So it was just like a constant, like I think I maybe drank water twice that night. And I was just feeling so overwhelmed and just like, just so what is happening? Like, what is going on? And that cycle went on for a bit. It went on for a couple months, and even on like my nights off, I would end up going in because we were so short staffed, because we were literally doubling our patient ratios. I would go in from like 12 a.m. to 3 a.m. just to take vitals for the nurses, because I knew what it was like to be short staffed. And so I was like, so many people are like, set boundaries, don't go in on your day off. And I was like, I just can't, like, also, this is just an insane time we're in. And I was like, I can't, because I know what it's like to be short staffed and not have people to help. So that was a few months of that. And then things kind of started dying down beginning of last year. And probably like, maybe like February time-ish, Taylor and I were in the car, and he asked me, he was like, are you okay? And I was like, yeah, I'm just tired. I worked the past 3 nights. Like, I was literally tired for months. Like, that was just like, I was like, I'm just so tired. And he was like, no, but like, are you okay? And the conversation just ended. And like, I just kind of took it and was like, oh, I don't know, like, if I am. That's a good question. I don't know how to know if I'm not. Like, this was just all kind of what I was processing. And that's where the conversation ended. And I ended up working, like, for another, like, 5 months. And then I actually got COVID really bad last year. I was out of work for, like, a month and a half. Just at home, which was, I think, really just God giving me a slap in the face and being like, dude, like you got to take a minute. Like, you need to chill. You need to sit. You need to like look at like yourself and look at like what's going on around you. And you like need a moment. So it was not fun in the moment, but I definitely needed I'm very bad at sitting. Like I need to always be doing something. So I really needed to like sit. And it was after that I decided to leave the hospital, because I had really severe depression and anxiety from that, which I didn't even know like the extent that it was. And I ended up learning that I have like PTSD from it, and like a lot of nurses do. But I didn't really realize the severity of it. But when I left the hospital, I knew that I still wanted to help people. I'm a 2 on the Enneagram, so I'm a helper. I love helping people, and it just like makes me feel good. Like it fuels me. So I was like, I want to do something. Like God's giving me this platform on social media. Like, how can I use it to help people? Because the world is just like crumbling. People are dealing with things they've never dealt with before, myself being one of them. So that's kind of the long story short of how I started Lemons. And I just was like, I'm going to start this blog website, just share my thoughts. And I hope at least one person is
That's
affected
cool.
by it, because if one person is, then I did my job. But
It's
yeah,
awesome.
that was kind of how I started all
Wow.
of that.
Health and wellness are two things that are super important to me and my family. We love being active when we can. And of course, another little help is on the way. So my regular workout has changed a little bit, but it's still important for me to be healthy. But for Christian, it's something that he values daily. In fact, not long ago, he squatted 500 pounds and ran close to he did run a 5-minute, 7-second mile. So that's pretty crazy. So it goes without saying that we love to be active. That's why we are big fans of Athletic Greens. They're a health and wellness company that makes comprehensive daily nutrition really, really simple. And who doesn't love simple things? AG1 by Athletic Greens helps you be your best. It's a superfood product that gives you one thing with all the best things. Just one scoop of AG1 has 75 vitamins, minerals, and whole food source ingredients, including a multivitamin, multimineral, probiotic, green, superfood blend, and more. The ingredients all work together to fill all the nutritional gaps in your diet, supporting energy and focus, helping with gut health and digestion, and supporting a healthy immune system. So you don't need a bunch of pills that you might have used to take. You can basically replace everything with just one simple healthy drink. Christian is a fan of their travel pack so that he can keep up with his daily nutrition when we're on the go, which we are on the go a lot, so that's super helpful. And his parents even love it too. AG1 is lifestyle friendly whether you eat keto, paleo, vegan, dairy-free, or gluten-free, and it contains less than 1 gram of sugar, no GMOs, no nasty chemicals or artificial anything. I personally love taking vitamin D, and so Athletic Greens has got me covered with their vitamin D3 plus K2 liquid drops. Since they're drops, that means that you don't have to swallow a pill, and they're super easy to take. You can put it on food, mix it with liquids, or take it as is, and it's an easy way to take care of your heart health, your immune system, and your bones and your teeth. It always makes me feel so much better when I'm taking vitamin D. And since one bottle contains 600 servings, you do not have to worry about running out because this stuff lasts. To make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you an immune supporting free 1-year supply of vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase if you visit athleticgreens.com/woe today. Again, just simply visit athleticgreens.com/woe to take control of your health and give AG1 a try. That's such a powerful story. And first of all, thank you for what you did, because I know that was such a hard time. And I actually was in the hospital with COVID because I was so early pregnant, and I got COVID really bad in 2020, and it was, very scary. And I was in the hospital, and the nurses that came in were all masked up, and it was like really scary. But also there was this one nurse that like made me feel so like safe in there, and it meant so much to me. And so I know what that means, like, to have a nurse in that situation like care for you and love you. And so thank you for doing that. And I think you said something in there that I think is really powerful. You said everyone was saying like set boundaries, but you were like, I need to go help. And I think that boundaries are so important, obviously, but I do think that sometimes like in this we talk about boundaries so much. So sometimes we talk about boundaries so much that our boundaries actually get in the way of us just doing the right thing. And
Yeah.
I think it's really beautiful that you're like, no, this is not always going to be the case, but in this season of my life, it's going to be the case. And I think sometimes there are seasons in life that are going to stretch you, that aren't going to look like every other time of your life, where the boundaries that, yes, you would typically set or might need to set later, right now, you need to show up for your friend, or right now, I need to stay up later because I need to work harder, or right now, And so I think that that's a really cool point to even say that, like, you still went in at midnight, even though, yes, you might have been really tired and yes, overworked, but you also saw that your friends and the other nurses like needed you. So just shout out to that, because I think that that is a really cool thing to make note of. And I know that you talk about boundaries in a healthy way too, but that's a really cool thing that not a lot of people can see, that there's a time and a place where you kind of just have to stretch yourself a little bit. But saying all that also, and saying that doesn't mean that all of that didn't lead you to a place of real anxiety and depression. So where do you feel like you are now with some of that anxiety, and how have you walked out from the PTSD to where you are now? Do you still deal with it? Are you working through it? What are some things that you've found helpful in the process?
Yeah, definitely still working through it. Obviously, it's gotten a lot better just having this whole past year of being able to be out of the hospital and going through therapy, and really just like a big thing that I do is just like take time like to myself. Like
It's cool.
I'll like have a conversation and then I'll be able to tell it back to you in the morning. Like I have to sleep on it. I need to like, my brain just needs to process. So I've really just been taking a lot of time to like process why things have happened, like why they did, how it made me feel. And then like, I'll like slowly start to remember things. A big part of my PTSD was I dissociated a lot. And so I just like wasn't ever present. And now like looking back, that's exactly what Taylor was talking about. Like when he was like, are you okay? Like I just wasn't myself. And even like to this day, I struggle with the effects of that. Like an example is like my brain, like I just can't remember things sometimes. There's this restaurant that's by us. We've been there multiple times. I drive past it all the time. Like I know the name, like I've been there. We know it. I could tell you where it is, what it's by, everything. Taylor had texted me and he was like, hey, do you want to go to this restaurant for dinner? And I'm looking at the name and I'm like, I know I've been here. I can't remember where it is, who I've been with, like what, like I literally couldn't remember going. I was like, I know I've been there, but I can't remember going there. And like now remembering, I like, oh, we went with Mara and Ryan. We went with these friends. We went with this. We had a date there. Like, but in that moment, I was like, that was the moment for me where I was like, okay, this is getting a little scary because I pride myself in my brain. Like I could tell you where Taylor's left sock is in the third drawer behind this white one next to the blue one. Like that's just how my brain is. And it has been an adjustment for me to be dealing with that kind of stuff. And it's gotten better now, like knowing, and I'll like go to my therapist and be like, Rick, why is this happening? Why is my brain doing this? Like, I don't understand. And like, just learning that that's just how your brain can be affected by trauma. And a couple weeks ago, I think we were leaving for our honeymoon or something like that. I was getting masks for us to travel through the airport. And I have like a big jar in a closet of a bunch of masks. And I opened it up. And there were that like heavy duty N95s that we would wear in the hospital because I had literally taken them if I didn't end up using it because like there had been shortages and sometimes we wouldn't get another one if we were working multiple days in a row. And I was like, I'm going to keep these in case I need them again. And that was the first time I'd seen them in a bit. And literally I opened it and I looked at the mask and I had chills shot down my body, like a pit in my stomach. And this was like last month. Like, you know, like it's just crazy. I mean, I have chills right now talking about it. It's just wild that like you can leave something and you can get over it, but it just takes like time. And that was like a little bit of a discouragement for me, but also just kind of like discouraging, but also like, okay, you got to keep working towards this. Like discouragement, but then it turned into motivation, if that makes sense. Randomly.
Yeah. Well, because sometimes when you see it for what it is, I always say, because it's weird. My friends and I were talking about our stories one time, and so many of us had this similar moment where we looked in the mirror one day and we kind of saw ourselves for where we were at, and we were like, whoa, like, how did we get here? You know?
Yeah.
And so I think sometimes when you see yourself or where you're at for the first time, or like the chills shoot down your body, or you're like, what? Like you realize, whoa, like I really need to get help. Like I'm not in a good place. And it just is kind of like a wake you up moment. And I remember, so I used to struggle with anxiety so bad for years, had panic attacks and all kinds of crazy things. And I wrote a book called Live Fearless, like really tried to work through it, wrote about everything that I was walking through and still walking through and processing and everything. And then years after I even wrote that book, or I guess maybe within the year after I wrote that book, I was at a restaurant. And one part of my anxiety, it just kind of, I think it was really sparked from fame and everybody always looking at us when we walked in a room, and we had a few dangerous situations happen. And so I would just get really panicky over people and what they were going to do to me and how they were going to approach me or whatever. And so if I would go out with friends to restaurants, I would always make sure I sat where I could like see the whole restaurant. And like,
Sure.
then I would feel okay. Well, this one day I was with this group of friends who didn't really know this about me, like that I get really bad anxiety, and I came in a little bit late. And so I had to sit on the side where the restaurant was all behind me. And I was like shaking. And I just remember I was like grabbing my hands like this because that was always what I would do when I was anxious, grab my wrist. And I was like, just like really shaky. And I looked at my friend. I said, "Can I switch seats with you?" And she's like, "Really?" And because she didn't know. And I was like, "Yeah, I just, like, it makes me really anxious." And she goes, "You're really afraid right now, aren't you?" And I said, "No, like, I really am." And she said, like, "Why?" I was like, "Well, it's just a long story. Like, I just need to switch sides with you." And she just said, like, that's not okay. Like, you need to get help with that. And she's a pastor and she's awesome. And it was really actually helpful for her to say that, because I think for a long time I just was like, I was like sitting in the safety of, oh, well, if I just sit on the right side, then I'm going to be okay. But actually, like, me sitting on the right side wasn't helping me get through what I was going through. It was just kind of numbing it for a moment or making the time pass. But I really needed to be called out and say, like, hey, that's not okay. That's not normal. Like, I understand you've had things that have happened to you that would make you want to feel that way, but you don't need to let the things that happen to you actually like change everything about who you are, and like let it have authority over you, like let fear have authority over you. And so that was when I kind of started realizing, this is a problem. And then later on in life, whenever I got really bad anxious about stuff, a friend told me about Dr. Amen, which I don't know. Do you know Dr. Amen? Okay, so Dr. Amen, he's been on the podcast talking to me and everybody, of all of my like listeners, about going through trauma and all this stuff, because I was like, after I went through his help, I was like, I want you to come on the podcast because this would help so many people. And he did. So anyways, he helped me so much when it comes to dealing with trauma and fear and all the different things. And I'm like walking in so much freedom now, and I'm so thankful. And my life is not marked by fear. It's not defined by fear. I don't feel that way anymore. I don't even think about where I'm sitting in a restaurant. And I'm just so thankful for that. And it wasn't Dr. Amen that did that. I mean, Dr. Amen helped me through that, but I really feel like it was the Lord and taking his word to heart and really just starting to live in freedom and work past those things. But it was really cool because I met a girl a couple months ago who was in a really similar situation that I was in. She has a lot of fame and a lot of followers and feels a lot of anxiety. And I said to her, I said, when I was in your position, I never thought I would be out of it. I thought my life would always be marked by fear. I thought I would always have anxiety. I thought that was just almost a part of who I was, I didn't think I could get past some of those things. And I said, but here I am 5 years later, and I am walking in so much freedom, and I can confidently say that, like, you can get through this. And her eyes were just so filled with hope. It was like almost like shock, like, wow, because it was like, I've been there, but look at where I'm at now. And I think to so many people, that is what you're doing. It's saying, like, this is where I've been. This is where I am. This was 1 month ago. But every day I'm taking steps towards getting better. And your talks, your blogs each week are so encouraging. It's like a friend to a friend. And so I want to ask you about that just idea of a friend, because I think some people, when you think about mental health or you think about starting a blog, you can think like, whoa, this is out of my, this is out of my qualification. But how do you just jump in and say, you know what, I might not know it all, but I know enough to be your friend? What does that look like, just to have the courage to start something like that? Y'all, I want to show you my new Dwell temporary tattoo that I have on this month. This one is 1 John 4:16, and it's helping me memorize that verse about God's love. If you haven't seen a Dwell temporary tattoo and you're listening to this podcast, they're so cute. They do a different design each month with a verse to help you memorize it. And on the tattoo, it's the first letter of each word in the verse, so it helps prompt your memory. As y'all know, one of my favorite things is spending time in God's word and scripture, and it is so important to have that deeply rooted in your heart. I love getting to learn scripture and memorize it, but it definitely helps when you have a fun way to memorize it, and Dwell Differently, and their mission helps you do just that. Memorize Bible verses in a fun way. Each month from Dwell, you'll actually receive a Bible verse memory kit full of fun temporary tattoos that can make for great conversations. They also have keychains and a card that has the month's verse on it as well. And the card's really pretty, so you can put it in your house, in your car, wherever you really want to. It's a monthly membership, so you can jump in whenever. And I couldn't think of a better time than this time of the year to start memorizing scripture in a fun way. You can even get your family involved in gatherings. You can do a little scripture challenge. Be so fun to just, remember the reason for this season. When you fix the word in your heart and mind, how much easier is it to encourage someone right across you to speak truth into their life? It's just so important that we have that as a deep well in our heart. So if you're thinking you're too young or too old, you're wrong, because Dwell is truly for everyone. Dwell has helped so many people of all ages memorize over 400,000 verses. Now that is a lot of verses, and they can help you start your journey today of memorizing scripture. Guys, this truly is so powerful, and I hope you check it out at dwelldifferently.com. You'll be amazed at how God can use just one scripture, one verse to really just change everything in your life. He's done it for me, and I know He can for you too. Use the code Sadie, it's just my name, SADIE, for your first month for free. And you have to check out their holiday sale that they have going on right now to help you give meaningful gifts this holiday season. That's dwelldifferently.com, and use the code Sadie to get your first month absolutely free.
I definitely think faith is a big part of that.
Yes.
I just kind of woke up and was like, I think I'm going to do this. This is what I want to do. And I definitely feel like God speaks to me when I sleep and I wake up and I have all these ideas.
I love that.
Okay, great. That's how I started my nonprofit. I had never had an intention of starting a nonprofit, didn't know anything about it. And I woke up one day and I was like, babe, I think I'm going to start a nonprofit. He was like, what? I was like, yeah, I don't know, but I think I need to do it. He was like, okay, great. And here we are now. So
that's so
definitely
cool.
Just a lot of faith in that. But also just knowing that I've always been one to not share my opinions, but just share my thoughts and share what I'm going through, because I know that if I'm going through something, there's definitely someone else that is going through something similar or can take away something from that. But that was just kind of how I got started. I was definitely nervous in the beginning, for sure, that that I was going to say the correct things, that I was not going to come across a certain way. But I was just talking to someone yesterday. I've been wanting to share this whole mask story that happened on social media, but for some reason, right now, I've been worried about not what people are going to think of me, but I don't want people to be pity her. She's just doing this to stay relevant or to do whatever. And that's been that's probably been the hardest thing for me, because I never want to come across that way. Mm-hmm. And I think that's probably my biggest fear. But mm-hmm. the person I was talking to, they were no, just mm-hmm. do it. Haters are going to hate, the more people are going to take away from that and be hey, this person is still struggling with that. It's okay that I am too.
Yeah.
So I just keep telling myself that. And good. My friends and family are so supportive. And when I see my friends repost the Lemons by Tay Instagram page on their stories, I'll just be clicking through and I'll see someone repost it. I'm like, oh my gosh,
it's so
it just
cool.
Makes me so excited. And just the affirmation I've received from my friends and family and people, just followers of the account too.
It's cool.
It's just really pushing me to keep going, which is really awesome.
That. That's awesome. Well, I think that's so real though. I mean, everybody feels that way. It's okay, well, if I post this, what if people think this or what if people think that? And we can get so in our head about what we post. And I think the biggest thing is just asking yourself, why am I posting this? And if your heart is pure in it, then posting it. And if people think whatever, then let them think. But your heart be pure in what you're doing, and your heart is so pure in what you're doing. And I love that God speaks to you in the night and you wake up and just go with it. And I think God does that to me too. And I think that's what a lot of life is. When you see people starting these crazy things, a lot of it is just God just spurring their heart to do it and their willingness to say yes. And you got to have that willingness to say yes. I mean, if you think about the stories of the Bible, it's sometimes just so easy to read those stories and lose the gravity and the magnitude of what was actually happening. When you think about Moses and he's about to put like his staff in the water because the Lord said, put it in the water and expect the sea to part. It's like you read that and you're like, oh, cool, the sea parted. It's like, no, literally a human had to believe that when he did this, God was going to actually part the sea. That had never happened before. It's like Joshua, he's like, walk down this wall of Jericho 7 times and see what happens. Like, that's a human expecting an entire wall around a city to fall because the Lord said do it. And so you think about that. That's who God is. That's who God still is. So God's going to ask you to do stuff that you might look and say, this is impossible, but remembering you serve the God of the impossible. So I just love that you took that on. You're doing such a good job with it. I saw one of your recent posts was about grief and the holidays. And I know the holidays is right around the corner. Your podcast is coming out right before the holidays. So give some advice to the people out there who have struggled with this, because I know holidays are super fun for some people, and then for others, it's one of the hardest seasons.
Yeah, definitely think, like, since diving into all this mental health stuff, holidays, even if you're not necessarily experiencing like the loss of a human, grief can be like your kids being with like their spouse's family for the first time. It could be like a family member being out of town or not coming. It could even be like if you have a rough relationship with your parents or with a sibling or with a family member, and like you're having to be in the same room as them. There's definitely just like, there's so many aspects of that. So that was just something that we wanted to touch on, just a couple different ways of how, like, it's such a big word, but intergenerational trauma and like grief, and it's such a heightened time. And I think that's why like this time of year is so stressful too. But I think just knowing that if people are feeling like more anxious or more stressed around the holidays, like that's valid. Like they're expected, like there's a lot of you that is expected, and I know like, not really, I don't have a lot of family like here. So it's just kind of like my parents, but I've like growing up, like you're expected to be at things. I know people whose families are huge and you're expected to show up for multiple days and converse, and like they maybe don't like do the same things their family does, or there's like past traumas there. So it's definitely a heightened time, but I would just encourage people like to know like feelings that you're feeling are valid, and to just like note them. And to continue to just like work through it and figure out like what you need without setting too hard of a boundary. Like we talked about, like make sure the boundaries that you set are what's healthy for you, you know?
That's so good. I love that you said note them. One thing Dr. Amen told me was like, keep a fear journal, which I don't do, but I feel like sometimes I should do. And it's like, just write it down, because sometimes when you write it down and you see it for what it is, you can be like, okay, well, this is not truth. You know, sometimes your emotions will tell you something is true that is just such a lie, you know? And when you write it down and you see it for what it is, you're like, that is so far off from what I actually believe or what is actually going on. And that shifts your perspective back to the original piece of advice to say, okay, this is what I feel in the moment, but this is not what's actually going on here. So I love that.
Yeah.
One thing I've seen you write about is the idea of having an outlet, which I think is such a practical thing. And so talk to us about what that looks like in your life and how people can incorporate that in their own.
Yeah. I mean, my outlet for so many years was dance. I danced growing up my entire life. And now that I don't do it anymore, I've realized how much of an outlet that was for me and how useful that was, because I feel like sometimes now I'm like, not really now, but like shortly after dancing, being done with high school, I was like, I don't really know how to process my emotions correctly. Like dance was just like where I thought through everything, how I moved through everything. And that was such a big outlet for me. So definitely like transitioning into like adulthood post dance has been even still a learning thing for me, trying to figure out what an outlet is. But I just think it's so important that we find an outlet, whether it be like talking with someone, whether it be walking, reading a book, going to get a facial, going to get a massage, like something that we're able to just kind of like take a moment, like not and turn our brain off, but like think through things and just kind of like, I think of it like I'll go to sound baths, which is literally you just lay there and listen to these cool, like different frequencies of these circle things.
That's
I don't even
cool.
know what they're called, but you just lay there for an hour, and like it's crazy to watch like the first like 10 minutes, my brain like can't stop. And then like 20 minutes in, I'm like, you just reach like such like a meditative, just like calm state. And I think finding an outlet that you're able to just kind of reach like a state of like calmness and just like levelness,
It's cool.
I think is really important.
That's cool. I love that. I think it's true. Like someone actually said to me before, find something that makes your brain turn off. And for me, that has been tennis. Like me and my husband play tennis a lot. And when I play tennis, I do not think about anything. I'm just playing the game. And it like makes me feel so good after, because it's just like a brain break. And I remember actually after I had COVID and was out of the hospital, and this was maybe even the second time. I can't remember. I don't know. I've had COVID 3 times, but it was one of the times.
Gosh.
And I was like, me and Christian were, it was just kind of a hard day. I'm like recovering. Honey was young at this point, so this definitely wasn't the first time. And we put her down for a nap, and Christian goes, "What do you need?" And I said, "I need to make cookies and I need to dance." And he was like, "What?" I was like, "That's just all I want to do right now." And we made cookies, and we did our first like dance reel, where we called it Dancing with the Parents. It was our first one we did, and people like loved it. And it was so funny because it was funny, but we actually were having a hard day, and I was just like, I just need to make cookies and dance. And then we ended up doing that for a while. That the whole like first year of Honey's life, we did so many dance videos, and it really came from days where I was like, I need to dance. Like, and it was the thing that Christian and I could just turn our brain off and laugh. And he's such a bad dancer that it was always entertainment to me. So it is true. Like, you gotta have those things in life where you're just like, you know, this is fun for me. This makes my brain turn off. Like, I'm gonna go do it, and incorporating those in your daily life. Christian's so good at like having his outlets, and he's so good at incorporating them in his life. And I learned that from him, because sometimes I'm like, oh, well, I'm just too busy to do that. And it's like, no, you're not too busy to, you know, work on your mental health. Like you say a lot, like it's always something you should prioritize. You're not too busy to slow down for a second and make sure that you're the healthiest version of you that you can be. Because now, even just being a wife and a mom, for me, I'm like, I'm not just being healthy for myself, I'm being healthy for them, you know? And so it is so important you have those things. One thing I love you talking about too is like celebrating little victories. All these things are just so practical and so good. And so talk to us about that too, because I think that's a fun way for people to start just incorporating some joy in their life.
Yeah, I mean, as we said, I'm a woo girl, so I love
Yeehaw.
celebrating. I just love celebrating. It's just like a moment to like, it's just a moment to be happy and to celebrate and just be joyous no matter what's kind of happening. So Taylor and I definitely like try to incorporate that. If like, I don't know, if I did something in a certain amount of time, or if I like responded to all the emails I needed to do, I'll be like, woo, I did it. Like just
awesome.
like little things that will like incorporate. Or a big thing, like when I was still working as a nurse, like after, if I worked 3 days, we'd be like, okay, let's go out to dinner now. Like we get to celebrate. I'm done for the week.
Yeah.
Just like finding the little things. Even I'm like, I don't even think this is a thing, but I call myself like toxic optimism. Like I'm like, so like, sometimes Taylor's like, calm down. Like you need to stop. Because I'm so like, I always give people the benefit of the doubt. I'm always like, just so optimistic. And I'm always like, oh, well, this happened, but this could have happened. Like that's just my personality all the time. Like our dog, she has something wrong with her eye right now, and I have to take her to the vet after this. I'm like, well, it could be both eyes. Like that's like where my brain goes. I don't know why, but I definitely think that's how I started like celebrating the little victories. Like that's definitely like just like keeps you going and keeps you motivated, and it's an excuse to like smile and have a little joyous time.
I love that so much. I'm kind of the same way. If something happens, I'm immediately like, well, but look at how good this can be, or like turning into a message like too soon, and like all this stuff. And I recently went through something where it was really hard, and I told Christian, I looked at him, I said, I am not going to make this a good thing. I was like, I am not. And then, of course, like a week later, I was like, now that I've been thinking about it, let me paint this new picture. But I think that's a good thing. I mean, I think it's just choosing to see the joy. And Bible talks about fixing your eyes on Jesus, fixing your eyes on the author and the perfecter of your faith. And so I think it's more than just optimism. I think it's probably faith. I think it's probably just saying, I'm choosing to see that there's something good in this. And so I love that so much. And celebrating little victories is so important because we can be so hard on ourselves. Like there are so many things that we can look at and be like, I wish we did better this, so we should have done that, blah, blah, blah. My mom always says, like, get rid of the should-haves, like just do it, and
that's awesome.
I love that so much. She always says, get rid of the shoulds. And it really is like so true, because we could say that all day long, but to say, you know what, actually did this and that was good, we need to celebrate. And so many people, you just let life fly by without celebrating these little things in your life. We celebrate the big things, but that's just maybe a birthday every year where there's so many more things to celebrate. So I love that. Yeah. So just closing, thinking about Lemons by Tay and all the stuff you're doing. When you think 5 years down the road, and I know I hate when people say, what are you going to be doing 5 years down the road? So I'm not asking that. But when you think 5 years down the road, just the things that you're starting, the things that you're doing, and even as a married couple, what do you hope you see? I guess, what impact do you hope you leave on people in the next years to come with the things that you're doing?
Yeah, that's definitely, I've been asked, not that, but a question like that a lot recently, just because going into like this new year, this is the first time that like I've really just had time to myself to like focus on, which is funny because now I'm like married and I'm not just myself. But it's just the point in my life where I'm like, I can really just focus on like my career and Lemons, and just like, I literally like want to bring it to the moon. Like that's awesome. There's so many things I want to do, but I just want to like reach as many people as possible and love as many people as possible. 'Cause like, that's just like a big way of how like I choose to live out my faith, is by loving everyone. And that's awesome. That's such a big thing for me, because I definitely think a lot, it's so cliche, but like there's like not enough love in the world, like we need to love each other, blah blah blah. But that's just like, I just want to like love people. I want to be intentional with people. I want to love people, and I want people to feel heard.
It's awesome.
And seen, and just help people. So I just want to reach the masses. Who knows? Maybe we'll have scholarships down the line, or I want to do Lemons events, so cool. And just like love people and reach people, and just like, I'm just like waiting. I just feel like I'm waiting for God to be like, this is what you're going to do. I'm just like, like ready for it. I'm just like anxiously waiting.
That's
so I'm
awesome.
pumped.
Well, it seems like you're working in the waiting, because you're doing a lot. And I love that so much, because everything you just said reminds me so much of what I said when I first got started. I didn't know like what it was going to look like, but I knew like what impact I wanted to make. Like I always said, I just want to be a sister and a friend to those who don't have a sister and a friend. And however that looks is whatever I'm going to do. And, it started with like an in-person gathering, then it was like a blog, and then it was a book, and then it was a podcast, and then it was a conference and a tour and all these things. And like, then once I was like, oh, this is what I'm doing, like I've just done that over the past few years, and like what God has done in growing it has absolutely blown my mind, because it really just came from a heart of like, I just want to be a sister and a friend to those who don't have one. I want to love people well. I want to show I want to show people that God made them as an original person, that they can be confident and not compare themselves to left or right. Like I had all of these heart missions, but not like actual ideas of what that was going to look like. And I think that's so good, because I think some people, they go in and they don't have the heart, and they say, I just want it to be a stage, I want it to be a platform, I want it to be this many followers, I want it to be that. And when you chase after that and not chase after like the mission, I feel like that's whenever you fail, and you always fall short. But in saying like, this is what I want to do, I want to reach as many people as possible. I want to love people well. I want to show people that, you can live a better life than the one that you might be living right now. Like you can only win with that, because if tomorrow it's 2 people and the next day it's 3, then you're winning, And so I love what you're doing. We are cheering you on here at LO. I'm cheering you on just as a friend, and excited for what you're doing, because I think it's so helpful to so many people. And when I see people, putting out anything that's encouraging, that's rooted in faith, and that's helping people with mental health, I'm like, yes, thank you. And so thanks for what you're doing. You're awesome. Thanks for being on the podcast. It was so much fun to talk to you, and just super excited to see where life takes you.
Thank you. That was so fun.